This is the Crystal Chronicles, your Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast, with Erolai, Keiss, and Mark, bringing you all your Defo news and talk. Welcome to Season 4, the LGBT era. Now let's start the show.
Welcome everyone to episode 119 of the Crystal Chronicles, your Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast. I'm Mark, and I just realized that I'm kind of sitting in a shadow because only one of my lights is on. So you can see half of my face. I'll make sure that fixes the other one. Hey, before we begin, thanks to Diggs Asura, thanks to CSAM for the subscriptions, and thanks to Hate13 for the last-minute addition there, and we'll have that on file for future episodes. Well, I am so glad you are joining us all, those of you who are live with us tonight, and those of you who are listening later. Thank you for supporting the podcast, and we are so happy to just have you with us. So, I am joined by not just two, but three special people. The first, you know her and love her. Her name is Erolai. Ero, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I made it through my first real day of work at the census. And man, I thought I was tired for a little bit, but I got enough time to relax to be here on the show today.
Well, we are glad you are here after you're roughing people up, getting them to fill out the census. Hey, kids, fill out your census. If you live in the United States. If you don't, maybe you have your own census. I don't know. Hey, we're also joined by Keiss. Keiss. He survived
Hello.
Sally and is here with us tonight.
Sally decided not to hit me.
Yeah.
It just decided to go east instead, so I feel bad for everyone it did hit.
Yeah, lots of rain for the folks who did get hit, so we're thinking about all those affected by ongoing struggles, forest fires, terrible fires, obviously, in California, and the latest hurricane that's hit our part of the world. So, hey, now we're also joined by a guest host. You've had him. He's been on here before. You may know him as the #1 Cyan fan from across the ocean. His name is Neclord. Neclord, welcome back to the show.
Of course, it's good to be back. More pumped this time. I'm sufficiently caffeinated despite the time zone difference. So I'm ready to, even though Basch can defend himself from a lot of HP damage, I'm ready to defend him from the slander that's about to face him.
Yes, there's Basch bashing. That's a tongue twister. You can say that at parties. Basch bashing. Well, it's good to have you all here. Mino is listening in and may throw in something here and there, depending on how he feels. That's why you see his name up there. So, news of the day, we have some winners. Oh, winners from the Odin TCC Challenge. So let me shoot over to here. The Odin TCC Challenge, if you don't remember, that quest was a particular nightmare because Odin was pretty awful. So we did, some people actually wanted to do one, so we did ban Eald'narche, Amidatelion, Keiss, Leon, Warrior of Light, Aphmau, and Noctis. No burst mode as well for the TCC Challenge. Yeah, so we have some winners. Quite a few, actually. So I'll leave them up there on the screen. We didn't do an extreme for this one, which is fine. I think it was hard enough or frustrating enough.
Yeah.
Keiss, who does a lot of our work for TCC Challenge, of course, DissidiaInfo.com. Go support DissidiaInfo.com. Our friend Macnol, M-A-C-N-O-L, does all the call to arms and that. And so Keiss and him and several others, including Strafe and Arrow and Black Cloud, and Ricky Shu help make those challenges. And so, yeah, they all decided yeah, let's just do a regular TCC challenge. And yeah, we had about 25, I think, 25 people who did the regular challenge. And so awesome. Glad to have some people couldn't get enough Odin after summon board grindings, challenge quests, and chaos. But hey, we're going to also announce the next one today, so you'll have that on the radar moving forward. And then, look forward to the next one as well. We did get late September Chocobo panel missions. You need to bring Basch and Barrett to 15 events. You have to bring Noctis to a whopping 40. So, all that time you've already spent playing Noctis, you're going to need to bring him again. A lot of co-ops. Noctis is going to be synergy for 9's co-op. So a lot of co-ops with Noctis to get those 40 in. And you need 25 co-ops and, of course, some monsters. If you're looking to finish those boards today or tomorrow or sooner than later, you can go to DecidiaInfo.com, and our friend Macnell has a Chocobo panel guide for every single Chocobo panel. C-Sam asks, what's a cum-cum? That's a great question. They are those floaty, kind of wizardy looking monsters. They kind of look like, what's his name from He-Man? The little floaty guy. What was his name? Orko? Orko. Yeah, they kind of, am I wrong there? They kind of look like Orko
They're
from
in Bosch's
He-Man?
LC.
Yes. They are. They
also in the story chapter we had.
Yes.
That's where they were just released at.
They were a new enemy in the story chapter.
Sort of look like a hooded Vivi.
Yeah, pretty much. As we'll talk about later, everything goes back to Vivi. So pretty much, yeah. If something that looks like Vivi in a what would you call that? Like a maroon, or I could just open the game and show you what they look like. But I was trying to save my my phone battery. But yeah, they're monsters and you should kill them. But they are in Basch LC. They are in the story chapter. Opera Omnia has been updated. All that good stuff. So I'll put them up there and highlight them during the show if you're having a question. But they're little floaty monsters, and they're new. So why are they called cum-cums? That's a question only the Japanese can answer for us. So if you design Final Fantasy games, you can let us know that. All right. Well, congratulations to all of you who have partook in the TCC challenge. Thank you. I hope you enjoy it. Well, let's move from the TCC challenge to Bosch's lost chapter, A Captain's Loyalty. Basch is back. It's a little confusing in terms of, the story, because we just had a story about Basch and Gabranth, but Basch comes back with his lost chapter. We were able to get now his new weapon. He did get a rework as well, a significant rework, actually, and an LD. So let's talk, Keiss, about what Basch got.
Sure. So Basch, as Mark mentioned, did get a rework along with his LD. And his rework was a pretty sizable one, all things considered. So, things that changed. His auras got improved, I'm pretty sure. They got increased quite a bit. So he provides more for the party. Other things that got changed, his buff durations from Fulminating Darkness got increased. So Kingdom Shield, HP damage resist lasts longer. His lock duration got increased up to 5 turns. He got more uses of Ruin Impedant. His HP++, Ruin Impedant, and Fulminating Darkness all give him much more Brave gain. He now batteries the party with HP++ and Ruin Impedant. He didn't do that anywhere near as much before. His healing's better, and he now batteries the party with Ruin Impedant. He has more Brave hits. Overall, he's just hitting a lot harder, is what I've noticed while experimenting with him. What you will notice using him now is that he doesn't really have to worry too much about conserving ability uses because of this change, plus the extra LD abilities, and the fact that his EX recharges so fast. He can really just continuously use abilities if he weaves in an HP plus every once in a while. Also note that with his Brave plus, he can battery the party if he needs to protect the whole party from a break. But again, his Ruin Impeding can do the same thing, so there's a very rare chance that you need to do that. You can always just continue to dump. But in general, he's just doing better, is a good way to put it. What he got that's new is his LD. Indomitable Palisade. He has 3 uses of it. It is an AoE Brave plus AoE HP attack. It does split damage. It does give him Brave afterwards. New things it does. It does give him the same things from Fulminating Darkness, so he gets his Kingdom Shield, HP damage resist, and lock. It also gives him a new buff called Indomitable. What Indomitable does is it gives him an increased attack, overflow, but what it also does is it basically makes him unkillable while it's up. If he takes HP damage that will reduce him below 50% of his max HP, he's restored back to 50% of his max HP. I.e., as long as Indomitable is active, he cannot be killed, because he also has something that makes it so he cannot drop below 1 HP as long as he's above 50% max HP. So Basch is basically unkillable, because remember that as long as he has Kingdom Shield active, he also redirects all HP damage, AoE HP damage to himself. And he has Lock active, so he forces all single target attacks on himself. So as long as you're not facing anything that goes berserk when Lock is active, or something that is immune to Lock, Basch basically makes your party unkillable as long as he can maintain his frame buffs. Yeah, that's what Basch does. He basically makes your party unkillable as long as everything works in his favor. This makes him very strong, as you can imagine. He is a very strong tank. Downsides of Basch: his lock is 5 turns. He's very, very slow. He is very dependent upon his gimmick. He doesn't do a lot of damage if he is not doing critical damage. His skill 1 and skill 2 do not have very high potencies. They do have critical damage multipliers on them, but if those critical damage multipliers are not active, they do not hit very hard. Keep that in mind. So Basch is a big wall. If that wall is not functioning, he's not doing much. So yeah, he's a big tanky guy who can't be killed. Outside of that, he's not doing he's doing decent damage now, but he's not doing anywhere near as much damage as recent LD characters. He's not going to be pushing his weight around like Noctis or Machina or Vaughn, for example. You bring him there to make it so your party can't be hurt, and that they ignore all damage, HP damage, and just sit there and laugh. And keep in mind that Basch has a lot of ways to heal himself now. Skill 2 and his EX and his additional ability all heal him. So as long as you're keeping an eye on his HP and you make sure his LD buff doesn't fall off, he can maintain his LD buff for 30 total turns throughout combat. He will not die. Simple as that. I've been experimenting as long as you're experimenting. Sorry, I lost my train of thought because I saw something in chat.
No, you're fine.
I've been experimenting with him for the last several days since his LD dropped, because I pulled his LD. He's a lot of fun, or he's very simple to use, but he doesn't need to be complex. He just sits there and he's a wall. He trivializes a lot of fights. That's all he needs to do, so just keep that in mind. I'll pass it off to Arrow because I know she has choice words about Basch. So Arrow, take it away.
I hate him. All right, just coming up with that. I find him to be he does what he does very, very well, but he is so boring about it. It drives me nuts. Like, holy crap. The guy's animations are slow to go on top of his already slow speed. I'm going to rant about slow animations. I hate those too. I just want the animations to kind of like be nice, but I don't want to sit there and watch you for 20 seconds do one thing. So I hate that. And then I don't one other thing I'm going to point out that I don't like, and then I'll go into some of the things I do like, is that he has 5 frame buffs. This is both good and bad. Good because he can't really be inflicted with any debuffs. Very bad when you're trying to build certain teams around him. So like certain elemental enchanters, no go with Basch, you know. Certain buffers like Ramza, for example, no go. You can use them with Basch, but he's not going to get the optimal setup. You know what I mean? So this makes it difficult. And then like, I don't know. It's just watching that. All right. So I'll go into the good things. The guy does what he does. He's like a tank. When you think of the standard tank, the guy who takes all the hits, never dies, always the last guy standing in an MMO or in a video game like Etrian Odyssey or something, he's the last guy standing. The end. That's what makes him good. And if you really need a tank, you can't go wrong with this guy. Just don't be expecting a lot of any flashiness from him or anything while he does it.
Well, Neclord, do you have a rebuttal to that?
It's just okay. Perhaps the animations are a little long. Like skill 2 especially, I'll concede that he just sort of punches thin air. It's pretty cool. Cracks the very fabric of the world open to do some damage, but it does take a while. But skill 1's pretty streamlined and to the point. And his X just has that. It's just a cool build up. You can't deny it. Those just spinning the swords around, man. But anyway, in terms that's just the visual, right? But there's a few tertiary things I want to add here because I actually used Basch quite a lot when he was at his base X plus because I stubbornly refused to 3-3 Zac for the longest time, which very regrettable. Probably should have done earlier. But what I found really, I used him quite a bit, and he was very clunky. He's a very clunky character because there's one part of his X that sort of gets ignored, and it's something I'm well acquainted with as a Scion player, is the dreaded HP conditional. So essentially, if he drops below 50%, his X will downgrade to something that's with his HP dump, so there'll be 3 hits instead of 4, and it makes his X feel dog shit, pretty much. But something with his LD, because it puts him above the last stand threshold, this, coincidentally, is also the threshold for his X, which means it will always be in the plus variant. So it makes that feel a bit better to a degree. And, of course, there's not really any pressure with his rework. When he uses skill 2, for example, before the rework, there wasn't really much refund, and he found himself being a bit of a break magnet because he was locking everyone. He was always getting attacked because there was such little refund. Instead of tanking for the party, he was tanking your score because of all the breaks. So yeah, there's a lot of things with this rework that is just, and I'm someone that loves criticizing Square Enix for shit decisions, but this rework and this LD just it does the best job at fixing a really clunky kit, and I love that. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. I will, as Zero said, one of the big problems with Basch is that he does hog a lot of buff slots, so you're not giving him any buffs. You got to keep that in mind. It's a big problem with Basch. You gotta make sure that if you're pairing him with anyone else who's granting auras or anything, they do not do it through buff slots, or they're granting any party utility. They're not doing it through buff slots because he will not play nice with them. That's a big problem.
You can even live dangerously and include Afmau, and that would put you at risk of using a skill and not actually applying any of your framed buffs because Afmau is overwriting them already and blocking out any new buffs from being applied.
Yeah.
That would be the poorest combo to ever do. I do not try that at home.
Yeah. So I want to get back to what Arrow said about Basch being boring, but before I do, I'm playing him on stream here. I have Basch. I have him fully kitted. Again, like Neclord, I used him in the EX era and EX Plus. Always liked him. He does what he does very well, but he was a little bit more clunky than before. Now he not only isn't he clunky, he does. Hey, thanks Taz for the subscription. Defo _Taz. Thank you for the subscription. I said I would shout shout him out earlier in Discord. But yeah, so he does that. He tanks all the AoE HP attacks, and this I mean, how long has it been since we've had a chaos fight that has showcased, and we'll get to the chaos fight, but a chaos fight that has showcased the title character for the event better than this fight? You have the dumb worms, who are just aggressive AoE HP attacks, and then you have the Ochu, which is aggressive AoE HP attacks with the ads that are aggressive AoE HP attacks. This is the perfect Basch fight, and not all of the fights showcase characters very well. This fight perfectly showcases Basch, because what he does is he sits there with all his frame buffs and he just tanks damage, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And now he batteries the party, and now he provides crazy aura. I mean, the auras are significant, right? 95% attack, 75% max brave. I mean, he can be your solo support character depending on the fight. For example, this chaos fight and this challenge quest, you don't need any other help. Basch can do it. He can probably do it without really a lot of other help, maybe just one other character, right? I haven't seen any duo runs. I haven't looked at the thing here. But I've seen certainly some without, a third party that's very strong.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like him a lot. He is a tank. He does what he does. One of the things that I showed on stream is he is so slow. He's so slow. So he can fall behind pretty quick in terms of, if you're playing with, I got Noctis and Bond, of course. If you're playing with faster characters, he can fall behind pretty quickly. But yeah,
he's at least faster than Raijin.
He is that is 100% true. He's faster than Raijin. But so my question is for Arrow. So, he's boring. Right, fine. He doesn't do any. He sits there, you manage his buffs. That's all he does. He's very simple. You press buttons. At the end of the day, it doesn't even really matter which skill 1, skill 2 you press. He just, I mean, there are some better times to use skill 1, skill 2, but it's mostly about buff management at that point. And LD, again, it's mostly about buff management. You don't want to press the LD too much, because you want to make sure you get that 10 turns of Indomitable and spread it out to about 30 turns as possible. But so give me an example of a tank that isn't boring to play. I guess that's my question for you, because as I'm sitting thinking of all the tanks, the true tanks, not the 9 tanks, but the true tanks, they're all pretty boring, right? Or maybe you have some other opinions on that, or I'll shut up later.
Well, okay. So the other 2 main tanks I do have are Celis and Zac. So I prefer tanks in this game that are not just big walls eating everything. But I guess Zac kind of does that, but he's kind of more limited. I don't know. Zac's an anime character. That's why I like him. He's literally an anime character with every animation. They're pretty fun to watch and all that. And they're pretty quick too. And in Celis, I picked up more because I just wanted to have a magic damage dealer, really. And on top of that, I like the idea of absorbing magic, like her absorbing a magic attack, and also helping to mitigate magic damage for the rest of the party. But she is constantly going. She's speedier than somebody like Basch, along with Zac. So I guess what I like in my tanks is I like them to not just be sitting there taking everything, and I don't have to pay attention. That's kind of what I feel like with Basch. I don't know. It's just I find him very boring. I didn't enjoy him. I have no idea how to better explain it, but. Personally, I like my tanks to do some damage, or at least decent damage. So that might be why I never really cared for Basch or cared for much about Warrior of Light. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel.
Yeah. So what would your sort of determination be about Galuf then, for example?
I think Galuf is interesting in what he does, but I feel like when he cheeses, you don't have to pay attention. So I didn't build him all the way because I'm not into that play style. I actually like to see the bosses do something, or at least have the capability to maybe do something. Sitting there and watching them just get cheesed completely is just not exciting most of the time for me, unless I'm just cheesing with Leon because I really need to.
This was a counterpoint I was going to put to you if you mentioned Galuf, but because you haven't, I'm just bringing up Galuf anyway. But with Galuf, like, for example, his skills are pretty no-nonsense and quite fast, but he will pad the length of the quest with those darn counters. Makes the quest take fucking ages.
Yes,
like,
that actually lengthens any video, it feels like, by 5 minutes that I have done. I swear, I don't know how to feel about counter characters because of that. Like, I like them on one end because it gives you a way to react to things, but on the other end, it just eats up a lot of time when you're playing the game. So, yeah, I've always felt a little mixed on that.
And that's the best part, right? Basch will just tank all of it, no nonsense, just soaks it up, and you move on. It saves you time.
He doesn't pad the video at all.
Very good point. Very good point.
Duration.
So as long as, and at least, even if his animations are slow, he himself is slow. So at least you won't have to see him too often.
Yeah, he is so slow. But he's fun. And he does what he does well. So, Keiss, any closing thoughts before we move to what would be the podcast polls?
I think the only thing worth mentioning is that Basch is your last chance at a tank, like a real tank, until Warrior of Light gets his LDBT at the beginning of November, I think is his scheduled time. So if you need a tank, this is your last chance to get one fully kitted out for a month and a little bit. Just keep that in mind.
I am all for tanks. Warrior of Light, Zac, Galuf, Celeste. Less so the evasion characters, although I think the evasion characters are fun. But true tanks in terms of their taking in damage, not avoiding damage. Minos calling you out, Arrow, about Leon, though. Minos says Leon is one of your favorite characters, but is one of the least active tanks. So do you have something to say?
So, to Leon's defense, there are plenty of fights I used him in, and I used him in fights where there are elemental attacks, or the boss gains just a bunch of brave, and then, this HP dumps you anyway. So, to his defense, you can't get around everything. Basch would just ignore all of that. So, hey, Mino, it's not bad play. And also, Leon's main job is to be an AoE damage dealer. The tanking's just an extra bonus, honestly, for me.
Well, to be fair, I would say that maybe that for Arrow, Leon is her AoE damage dealer. For the rest of us, he is the Imperiler Enchanter, or not Imperiler Enchanter, but the enemy Enchanter, Dark Absorber. Yes.
Now that I think about it, the main reason I bring Galuf is for the generic Max Brave buff for everyone.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, guys, we have a question in chat from Drez64. Before Basch, when's the last time we got a tank? Wasn't it Snow? Like, back at Sync Lost Chapter?
Snow was the last new one.
If you consider Cater a tank, then Cater. I'm not sure that or Leon, Leon.
Warrior of Light EX was available on Garland Lost Chapter.
Yeah.
And there was Leon.
But... yeah, so Leon's EX realization, Cater's EX realization, if you consider her, I mean, I'm not really sure I consider the evading characters like Edge and Cater tanks. But they do, in one sense, tank damage. A little bit more hybrid, I guess, so. But yeah, Snow's probably the last true new lock character who got kind of a, that mechanic of causing the enemy's lock, attack you, take damage like that, so. Yeah, and Leon does it too. I mean, not in terms of a new character. I mean, Snow and Leon have been around for a long time. Warrior of Light, I mean, Snow was one of the first Lost Chapters. Warrior of Light we've had since the beginning of the game. Leon's not that old of a character. So in terms of like new tanks, yeah, that's tough. Prompto, somebody says, yeah. So Prompto's kind of in that weird spot where he does tank some damage too. So
Freya's also a good mention there, I think.
Yeah,
makes
Freya.
Everyone have last stand.
Right, and then when Porom came back, I guess you could count her in with that. She got EX Plus with her Lost Chapter, at least.
All right, well, let's look to the podcast polls. We're going to talk more about tanks tonight. So all of you who are looking at this banner, on the 12 servers, remember that our friend Quetzalma MateriaBot. You can support MateriaBot on Patreon. Quetzalma has the podcast polls available to anyone who wants to use MateriaBot on their Discord. So we have among 12 servers, 16 people willing to pity Noctis's BT on the Basch banner. So people have been chasing Noctis's BT and didn't get it, and this was the banner they were going to go after. I'm not sure if, so if I was, I'm not sure if I was like I really wanted, obviously I pitied Squall's BT, but let's say moving forward, I really wanted a BT. I'm not sure that I would like pity on the second banner. I think I would prefer to spread out 75K among 3 different banners for 3 different characters, get 3 different LDs, and just increase the chances of having new weapons. But that's just me. I don't know. That's something we can talk about later. So 16 willing to pity, 37 willing to pity the LD, 22 using gems, 220 using tickets, and 61 using skipping. I used gems, and I got it in the first pull, I believe. So congratulations to me. I hope all your pulls went well. I got the content creator up rate, obviously. So that's how that happens.
Which isn't
very
real,
nice.
by the way.
Which isn't real, which is not a thing. But hey, I hope your polls went good, and I hope you did get Noctis BT before you had to pity. Our friends Resfoina and Jin Lee did a 2-part battle, and finally, the Jin Lee was able to destroy and defeat Resfoina. Resfoina was able to destroy and defeat Jin Lee after 4 consecutive losses. So congratulations to our friend Resfoina. She might join us here on the post show later on. Well, let's move from the podcast polls and discussion of Basch to this actual event, which is a lost chapter. So you go through the chapter on normal, on hard for the time being. There is a chaos fight, and then there is a challenge quest. The challenge quest characters for this are Noctis, because he's the BT character, Bon, so 2 BT characters available on this, which is ridiculous, Basch, who is the LD character, and then Sarah is kind of the other option. So 4 strong options for this challenge quest. You start by fighting 2 of those worms. I've been doing it on stream here. It's one that, using Noctis, it's nicer to be able to pay attention, but I don't always pay attention when I'm talking, so it makes it a little harder. But because I think I'm already up to 20 turns, right? Yeah, so you start with 2 worms. The worms do aggressive AoE HP attacks, just one spit after another spit. And then you have this funny-looking Ochu. What's it actually called? It's the Might Eater, and he summons little ads. And he does aggressive AoE HP attacks. He does 2. The big one is one where he gains Brave and kind of spits out and can do actually some debuffs as well, I believe. He starts with this move called, I'll have to look, Flash of Weakness, which lowers everyone's HP, so that hurts you right off the bat and increases his own speed. And then he does this Absorb Energy, which increases Brave when Brave is less than in Brave, absorbs all enemies' Brave. So this is one where you want no Brave, right? You want your Brave to be very low, or he's going to do more damage. And he does then a AoE HP attack. His other AoE HP attack is Dance of Tentacles, and that increases his Brave when his Brave is less than in Brave, and just does an AoE HP attack after that. But the little mites, they also do AoE HP attacks, and so it can be real annoying real quick. Thankfully with Von, you have some debuffs. Noctis has a little bit of debuffing power. Obviously Sarah has a lot of debuffs, so I saw a lot of Sarah runs. Or you just bring Basch LD and he just takes it all. You've watched on stream, and I can, after I use up my LD abilities, he'll take this without any problem. He took those worms attacks without any problem. Basch is a monster. Yeah, he's really good at that. So, Arrow, did you do this? And I think you may have even done a TCC challenge run. Who did you bring?
I did. I used the team you're using right now on screen with Noctis, Vaughn, and Basch, but my Basch was 03EX plus only with the base kit, obviously. And then I used Noctis and Vaughn LD kitted up and character boarded. It wasn't hard. Basch just eats all the HP attacks. I don't know. As long as you have Basch, it feels like it's pretty doable with pretty much any of the other 3 characters. Just pick 2 of them and take them. As long as you have them built up, obviously. I did do the TCC challenge. Apparently, I did. I remember sharing my run and wasn't sure if it would make it or not. But I ran Zidane and Lion and Lena for the non-boosted run with a General Leo friend. So that wasn't too bad. Do you want me to talk about why I brought that team, I guess?
Yeah, please.
Okay, yeah. I wanted to get some max breakdown.
We can talk strategy on this podcast.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about max brave debuffing. I think between Lion and Zidane, it was like maybe 45% only, but apparently that was just enough to get through the challenge quest and be okay. That's definitely one of the better strategies if you want to actually not just eat all the if you want to eat the HP attacks and live, and then of course you can use poison and poison debuffs to help a little bit. That would be another strategy. Of course, you can always just delay out the wazoo with Amidatelion and who else? Leo, Quistis, Garland. Just use them in your main party, and they can probably help out a lot with making sure you don't really see too many boss turns. And then, of course, you just want to keep those HP attacks out. You can also, of course, use Arciela or Kefka or our good old friend Eald'narche. So that would probably be like some of the main characters. But if you're probably going for the non-synergy complete and you don't want to like stop them from ever acting, yeah, max brave down debuffing and poison is probably going to be the key.
Yeah. And a lot of damage. Lots of damage to kill this thing as fast as you can.
Yes, it has so much health this time compared to its original Chaos run.
Priest, did you tackle this Chaos yet?
I did the same team for the Chaos, base Chaos and challenge quest because I was being lazy. I did Noctis LD, Vaughn LD, Basch LD, and Basch just trivialized everything, so it wasn't really much of a fight. Because again, the big thing is with this fight that just Basch being there and having all of his stuff up, the monsters don't, even if the lock isn't set up properly, he absorbs so much damage and absorbs so much of the HP damage, it doesn't really matter what you do because he just he trivializes the threat. It allows Vaughn and Noctis to go nuts. So Basch just stands there, and as long as he heals himself up, they're okay to just do whatever they want.
It's pretty ridiculous, actually. Neclord, is this something you've tackled in some different ways?
Of course, I brought Cyan, and he carried me to victory. And I guess Basch and Noctis helped out a little bit, but it was all Cyan, honest.
Of course.
I mean, mostly Cyan. I think we could all. My Cyan is not built up 100%. Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. But I could see if he was in the team, it could have. I mean, I'm already, because I've not been paying attention, I'm already at 30 turns. I mean, it's pretty much a wasted run at this point. Cyan, Cyan would have been a 0 turn victory, no doubt, no problem whatsoever. So I could definitely see the value in there.
And of course, thanks to Basch, Cyan's never dropping in HP, so his Subami Gaishe isn't getting nerfed to the shitty one that just does damage. No cleanse, no dispel. So he's at full capacity when he was operating.
All right. Well, we do have, as I finally beat that, 30 turns. I'm kind of a loser tonight. It's a lot.
That's a joke, everyone. It's okay to spend more turns.
It's a lot better than the 135 turns in that Abyss a couple of weeks ago. So we do have a TCC challenge for this event, and it is banning. So this is for the Chaos event. Banning the synergy characters, which is Vaughn, Basch, and Sarah. Also banning Eald'narche, Amidatelion, Arciela, Kefka, Keiss, Quistis, and I think that's Porom. I assume Palom wouldn't be.
Porom.
I assume Palom wouldn't be banned for any reason, because why? They're weak to ice, so bring Palom. Palom's the boy, right? I never remember.
Speaking of weakness,
I hate them.
Can Can bosses stop being immune or absorbing thunder? Can this just stop?
Soon,
I-
maybe.
I pulled Desh. I can't use him, man.
No, yeah, that's why they have to absorb thunder, because they brought on an LD character that imperils and enchants, and so there you go. So yeah, Leon is not banned. Oops.
There's a lot of AoE HP damage out
There
that's not avoidable.
Yes.
So Leon isn't going to really help you because that damage is still coming out regardless on whether you bring Leon or not. That
We know what we're
absorb,
doing.
that absorb attack, it's going to do a lot of damage. Even if Leon's sitting there, it's going to hurt.
So remember, no burst mode, and there is no extreme challenge. So this is just the regular challenge. Again, we're banning Von, Basch, Sarah, Eald'narche, Amidatelion, Arciela, Kefka, Keiss, Quistis, Porom, and Noctis. No burst mode. You can equip a burst weapon, which would be Squall and Chantoro, but no burst mode. So send all your videos to DecidiaInfo.com for all your...
As of right now, we
aids.
are not planning, I believe, to release an extreme for this.
Right.
If you guys want an unofficial extreme, the plan was to make it so that do not kill the small ads, which are called Might Eaters, anytime during the fight. We decided that might be a little too restrictive for this, so we left it alone. No official extreme, but if you guys want to try it out and have misery, do the unofficial one. Why not?
There you go.
No, don't kill Might Eaters. Leave them alone.
There you go. If you're listening to this, we're not going to publish it, but if you are listening to this and you want to put a special podcast exclusive TCC challenge run, don't kill the Might Eaters. Yep, just put a little message on there, and we'll check it out and maybe shout you out, especially next week's show. All right. Well, let's move from a guy who is definitely a tank to a guy who is definitely not a tank, but may have some tank-like qualities. And he is a character from a game that doesn't have a lot of representation in Defo, Type 0. That's a very spin-off game. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. Has a couple characters, and he is one of the characters from Type 0. His name is 9. Because they couldn't figure out something that was more exciting than 9. All right, so 9's event, The Power of Action. Reese, who the hell is 9, and what does he do?
9 is a ranged attacker who does provide some defensive benefits, is the best way to put it that I can think of. His more specific focus is in doing a lot of ranged damage. And you'll see that as I go through his kit. A couple quirks about him. He can provide damage mitigation through shields. His shields are kind of like Warrior of Lights, except that instead of his shields being based off of his Int Brave, like Warrior of Lights are, 9 shields are based off of the damage he deals with the attack that activates them. So keep that in mind. He can reduce incoming damage, HP damage to 0 that he activates by using his LD. Whereas Beatrix, so he has an ability a lot like Beatrix. His is based on his LD. Beatrix's is based on her EX plus, HP plus that comes off of that. So he has some nuanced defensive abilities, but a lot of what he's doing is he's doing damage. All of his attacks do damage. He has some utility attached to that. So keep that in mind. That's what he's doing. He also has pretty good auras. He can provide some nice benefits to the party. He provides some nice attack buffs, some max brave buffs, and he does have an HP max HP increase. So I can see why people think he might be a tank, but he doesn't quite fit the mold of tank according to us. If you think he's a tank and you want to treat him like a tank, you can. Just keep in mind he's not drawing attacks to the party. He doesn't really battery the party too much. His healing options are relatively limited. So that's really not his main focus. He's limited in how much he can battery or how much he can shield. He does not have 10 ability uses of his shield ability. He has 6 compared to Warrior of Light's 10. And his HP immunity ability is very limited at 4 uses throughout the entire fight, 4 per character. And he has to predict them too. Kind of like Beatrix, except it's a per character basis when he activates it. So he might have them up on some characters and not up on others, but I'll get to that when I talk about the abilities. So first thing about 9, once his first turn comes up in combat, he gets a free ability use on his first turn. This can be used for either skill 1, skill 2, or AA, but not his LD. Skill 1 is called Primal Roar. It is an AoE Brave plus AoE HP attack to split damage. And it gives the party Wild Guard. Wild Guard is his Brave Shield ability that works like Warrior of Light's Brave Shield ability. It just reduces incoming Brave damage as long as the shield is active. It blocks Brave damage as long as the shield is active until the shield is gone, and then it gets removed. The damage, as I said before, the shield's power is based on the damage that 9 deals with Primal Roar. It is 50% of the total HP damage dealt with Primal Roar, which means that obviously 9 needs to be able to cap on damage with Primal Roar in order to get the most out of it. So for that reason, I'm going to specifically mention its overflow cap. Base overflow on this ability is 200% overflow. 9 can increase this overflow further with some buffs. 1 buff from his EX that he starts with at the beginning of combat. 1 overflow buff from his LD buff that further increases his overflow. So he can potentially get up to about 260% overflow or 270% overflow if everything stacks in his favor. So keep that in mind. His second skill is called Whirling Lance. It's an AoE Brave followed by a single target HP attack that deals 50% HP splash damage. It heals him personally based on HP damage dealt up to 40% of his max HP, and then does trickle healing to allies if it would overheal him. This ability can be converted into a plus form that deals increased splash damage. I'll explain the conditional for that in a second. Both of these abilities, Primal Roar and Whirling Lance, in addition to what I mentioned before, also give him a unique buff called Wild Roar. If he hits a single target, he only gets 1 stack of this buff. If he hits multiple targets, he gets 2 stacks of this buff. He can hit max stacks of it, and the way it works is that it gives him an increase to his speed and increases to his attack and max brave based on the number of stacks up to 5 times. If he hits max stacks with this, Whirling Lance Plus activates, and then he gets increased splash damage. So Whirling Lance is his big AoE attack that he uses for dealing a lot of damage and healing himself. Primal Roar is his big ability that he uses primarily for applying his Wild Guard damage mitigation buff, especially because it has fewer uses. His EX ability is Laser Lance. It's on a slow recharge. It's an AoE Brave plus single target HP attack that deals small amount of splash damage, 20%. He executes it 3 times. Similar to Garland, it does a Brave gain after each HP dump except for the last one, and this is his big heal that he does for the party. He heals the party based on the total HP damage dealt up to 40% of their max HP, and he gets the Wild Lancer buff from this. Wild Lancer is worth mentioning. It gives him a lot of overflow and gives him even further overflow if there's multiple enemies. You might be seeing a theme here. Line works better when there's multiple targets. If it's an AoE enemy encounter, multiple target enemy encounter. If it's a single target boss, he does not work as well. His Brave Plus is called Jump. He batteries the party and then does AoE Brave attacks. His HP Plus is called High Jump. It's an AoE Brave plus single target HP attack that does splash damage. His LD buff is called White Knight. It is an instant turn rate ability. It dispels Rebellious Fame, which I'll get to in a second. It batteries the party based on max Brave. It extends 9's currently active buffs, has no turn count, so it's basically a instant turn rate, no turn count. Applies the White Knight buff to the party. White Knight gives everyone who has it a small increase to attack and Stolen Overflow, and this is the buff that gives all characters that have it the HP damage reduction. For one HP attack while this buff is active, they take 0 HP damage instead of any HP damage. Once this HP damage mitigation activates, the buff turns into Rebellious Fang. Rebellious Fang has a greater increase for attack and Stolen Brave Overflow, which is the reason White Knight dispels it. Basically, you cannot have Rebellious Fang and White Knight active at once. So that is his LD. Basically, he gets the HP damage mitigation from his LD. It only has a 6-turn duration, so basically 9 has to anticipate the incoming damage to make the most out of this. And especially with very, very fast characters who take a lot of turns, like Alice or Lightning, he cannot do this without very good anticipation of an incoming HP attack that's going to hit. The last thing he has is an additional ability called Boost Thrust, which is a AoE Brave plus AoE HP attack that also increases his max Brave for a couple of turns. So that's his kit. Basic idea of it is that he spends turns building up his Wild Roar. If you fully realize him, he only needs to do one of his skill 1 or skill 2 to hit max stacks, because he starts with 3 stacks. If you open with skill 1, Primal Roar, he will also build up his Brave Shield on his party, which will give them the damage mitigation from Brave attacks. If you use skill 2, he deals a lot of damage to the enemies. Once it's in its plus form, it does 80% splash damage, and he heals himself. His EX is the party heal. His LD is the way to protect the party from incoming HP attacks. And his AA is a nice safety for quick AoE Brave HP dump where necessary. However, because he has a slow recharging EX, you're going to have to rely on his Brave Plus and HP Plus more than you would for a lot of other characters recently. So keep that in mind. He does have a party battery on his Brave Plus, but you're probably going to want to rely more on his Brave Shields for most instances where you can get away with it. But again, you won't be able to maintain shields as frequently as Warrior of Light can. So in general, he has a lot of things to keep in mind. He does a lot. He's a very offensive character that does have some nice defensive qualities. He's going to take up more buff slots than some other characters. It's 2 buff slots on his allies. He takes up 4 buff slots on himself, I believe, if I counted correctly.
Yeah,
4
correct.
buff slots on himself. So keep that in mind. He's good at what he does. He's going to do a lot of damage. He's going to do a lot more damage than a character like Basch per turn. He's going to do a lot of AoE damage, which is really nice. His damage potential and his damage mitigation potential goes down hard if he's in a single enemy target situation. So keep that in mind. I think that is everything for 9. Did I miss anything that you can think of, Mark?
No, we can talk about the glitch or the whatever here in a little bit, but yeah. Nope, that sounds good.
Okay, I'll pass it off to Arrow then. You got any thoughts on 9 Arrow?
It's hard when you haven't had the chance to play a character.
You like complicated characters though, so he should be right.
He doesn't seem like he, in theory, shouldn't be like the most complicated tank or anything in the game. I don't know. Maybe just not the most complicated character. I mean, it's kind of cool. We're getting a fully ranged tank. I mean, that's new. Because anyone else who's kind of a tank is like only partially ranged.
Wow.
So just something to think about.
Kamari takes umbrage at that.
But he's like more like a defensive, I guess. I don't know. He's like some sort of defensive utility character to me. I don't see him as like a tank. So this is like our first real range.
I don't see 9 as a tank either.
Yeah, but I mean, he's probably more one than Kimari is. So I mean, I don't know. I like that. So I guess that's nice because then like Warrior of Light has a range attack, but he's got melee attacks too. And then like Zach has like that mixed kit thing with magic for some reason on his EX. That's weird. I don't know. It's hard. Like I said, it's hard to comment. I'm gonna pull for him because I just feel like somebody's got to try to rep this guy. So I'll do it. I'll be that guy.
Thank you, Arrow. Taking one for the team. Neclord, do you have any insight on this character who may or may not be a tank?
Well, I think the disinterest in Type 0 is testament to the chat. I mean, because the moment 9 came up, it had a little tangent about gremlins.
Yeah, we've lost on the night a new character is being released. We've lost 110 viewers because no one cares.
Yeah, like just looking at his kit, and this isn't really anything to do with whether he's a tank or not, but it just seems like a bit of a walking contradiction in terms of the translations. I don't know anything about the story at Type 0, and like Type 0 is instant skip for me. But he's got 3 buffs: Wild Guard, Wild Roar, and Wild Lancer. So he's a wild dude, right? And then his LD is White Knight. I mean, White Knights are like symbols of order, right? Not like wild by any stretch of the imagination. So I'd be curious as to why that is named that way.
I had, because this is all going into really what he is. And our good friend Black Cloud Black Nero on YouTube, you need to go to YouTube right now. Not right now, but when this is over, go to YouTube, Black Nero Defo, like, subscribe. He's getting close to 1,000 subs. We want to get him over 1,000 subs.
Yeah, he's got great content. And judging by his thumbnails.
Go. Black Cloud says, go right now. Yeah, go right now. Fine, just take a moment. I'm going to talk about stuff that's not important for a few minutes. Go right now to YouTube. Like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. He did a wonderful little video kind of going off on how there's a lot of folks in the community, in the greater Defo community, who who need to make comparisons. Like, well, 9's a tank. Well, he's a worse Warrior of Light. Well, he's nothing like Warrior of Light, right? Yes, he has a shield mechanic. Well, okay, but his shield mechanic is really not his main mechanic, right?
I just linked the video in question.
Thank you.
Stop horrible comparisons.
Yeah, so in Type 0, from what I know, and I've not played the game because I haven't played the game, he is your James Dean, cool guy, dragoon, but he's a paladin. So he's the cool dragoon paladin. So like he's the bad boy paladin, which makes no sense, right? He's the chaotic good paladin, which again doesn't make any sense, but it's Type 0. So he is, kit wise, he is a paladin. I mean, he is if you're going to compare him to other characters in Defo, just in terms of kit wise, he is more similar to a character who is a paladin, like Beatrix, like Paladin Cecil. He does offensive and defensive things together, right? So he's a good third slot character. But yeah, when it comes down to it, there's very few characters in Defo that are not, I have no idea in Type 0 before everybody goes crazy about who he is. I don't have any idea. I was just making a joke. But
I played Type 0 and I don't remember 9.
In terms of in-game, he has a lot more similarities to Beatrix or Warrior, or of Beatrix and Paladin Cecil than he does to a character like Basch or Warrior of Light. Holy Dragoon, when? That's what I want to know. Yeah, he is the Holy Dragoon. Oh, but anyway, it's hard to pigeonhole a lot of these characters because so many of these characters are very, very different. They do what they do well. Even the tanks in this game, the true tanks, they all excel at something very well. They're not just interchangeable. You can't just bring a tank to a fight. Galuf cannot be your tank for every fight. He is a physical tank. Warrior of Light is very good at specific fights with a lot of brave attacks, especially random brave attacks. Basch is exceptionally well at a lot of AoE HP attacks. Snow and Zac are a little bit more everyday tanks. Celeste is obviously your magic tank. Beatrix again has a similar kind of damage mitigation power. He seems fine. We won't know till we get a play with him, but a lot of people are suggesting skip on 9 because we did just get a tank. We did just get some range damage in Noctis. We are going to have some kind of hybrid defensive characters. Kamari's coming out with his LD. If you're not trying to get Noctis as BT on a third banner, and if you don't love Type 0, he is probably a skip. But I don't think he's a terrible character. I don't think comparing him to Warrior of Light makes a lot of sense because I think they do a lot of... Warrior of Light's not a huge damage dealer, right? Warrior of Light's kind of more like Basch in that he sits there and does what he does. 9 seems... I haven't played him, so I don't know. 9 seems like a much more in-your-face kind of, you're doing something with him. He's an attack-based character, right? So, yeah. Neclord, any more thoughts?
I think, largely, this game does a pretty good job of giving, for the most part, there's a few exceptions. There's some characters that are just unsalvageable, but for the most part, each of them have their own identity in some way. Something that makes them unique. So, Cyan ignores defense throughout his kit. Basch is unkillable. Yuna sucks.
Whoa! Did Black Cloud pay you money to say that?
Perhaps, maybe.
I'm gonna take. Don't go. Unsub to him right now.
I'll tell you what. I was scrolling through Black Cloud's channel, and man, that guy pulls a lot of bursts.
He is
all those burst orb thumbnails, man.
He is exceptionally lucky. He's got 7 dupe burst weapons right now, so he can token 3 burst weapons, I think. Yeah, exceptionally lucky.
Wait, those burst orb thumbnails weren't clickbait though.
No, they are not. Just like my burst thumbnails, they are not. They are not clickbait. He does actually have a lot of burst weapons and quite a few dupe burst weapons actually. So, must be nice. Must be nice. It's that content creator status up. But you were talking about the idea that, in this game, this isn't a cookie cutter game where all the characters are the same. There are characters that are similar, right? There are some characters that have similarities. But a lot of the characters are fairly unique in what they do, or they are situationally good. Yeah, your base damage dealers, each of them kind of have their own mechanic, but, it depends on the era and whoever's the newest damage dealer is doing the most damage. Some of them are a little bit more interesting or harder to play, easier to play, etc. But, most of the characters, even the damage dealers, are fairly unique. So to kind of pigeonhole everybody, and I think Tonberry Troop does a great job in terms of their role coverage. So if you look at, the Tonberry Troop infographic, tonberrytroop.com, do support our friends at the Tonberry Troop. If you look at their beautiful infographics, for 9, he is primary ranged attacker, secondary damage mitigation, third healer, and I believe that is based on his spheres. I think his spheres are A, B, C, and so that's really, the game doesn't ever tell you what role characters are besides their sphere slots. A is your attack slot, B is your tank slot or damage mitigation slot, C is your healing slot, D is your party support slot, and E is your debuff slot. So, if you're going to pigeonhole characters into roles, pigeonhole them by their spheres, perhaps. And even then, it can be a little bit...
Keiss comes to mind. A lot of debuffs, but it's an ACD setup, I believe.
Don't worry, everyone. I've already finished building the real winner tonight.
Barrett?
Yeah, Barrett.
Yes. Were we going to talk about Barrett?
No, because he just got his boards. But don't worry, I already linked it on the Discord that my Barrett is now fully built.
So I will tell you this story because it has to do with Barrett. I did share this in our one of our private chats. So if you can subscribe, if you want to subscribe and be in our private Discord chat with all the subscribers, feel free to. And you can hear wonderful stories like this and maybe other things. I don't know. But so I was sitting on the couch last night later in the evening trying to catch up on the LC because I hadn't done the LC at all. And so kind of just playing through the regular things. And my 6-year-old, he hasn't gone to bed yet. So he's like, can I play? And so I'm like, oh, he can just like burn through these easy nodes, right? And I'll just sit there and stare at the ceiling. And so he's like, well, I want it because he's a 7 fanboy. He's like, well, I want to play Zach. And I mean, he's just talking. He's doing it all. I'm not doing it for him. He's just talking out loud. I want to play Zach and I want to play Tifa. And he's like, where's Barrett? And I'm like, well, Barrett's at the bottom because I don't have any of his weapons. And he's like, well, why don't you pull for his weapons? Well, I'm like, well, I can't right now. He's like, well, it's because you don't want to use your gems. So I don't know how my 6-year-old knows that I have the hoarding disease. But yeah, so my 6-year-old wants me to pull for Barrett, so I'm going to throw some tickets on this banner. He is the winner. He's got a gun. He's a great dad. He is,
if you fully board him, it really does increase, hopefully, the beam damage from his EX ability, his EX buff. So that's my hope.
Yeah, Strafe reminds me. He did literally say you don't want to use your precious gems. That was the wording of my 6-year-old. Oh, they know. Yeah. So Barrett got bored. So
while you're doing tickets, should I read out the poll results?
Could you read out the podcast polls?
Sure. This will be a little bit lower in numbers because I don't think Main Court has their poll up yet. But so far, we have the results for 10 servers. 4 people were planning to pity the Noctis BT on this banner. 7 were planning to pity 9 LD. 7 were planning to go with gems. 82 were planning to go with tickets, and 87 were planning to skip this banner altogether.
Oh, well, that is good to know. Again, go to our Discord, go to any Defo Discord, and fill that out so that we can have good information. Yeah, a lot of people skipping, and you got to skip something. I mean, right? That's just I'm going to be talking about that in videos too. I mean, you got to skip something. We did not remind me if I'm wrong, if my brain just went potatoes. We didn't talk about the glitch or the problem that 9 potentially has. And that has to do with his shield. So when 9 released in Japan, his shields would not refresh until they were completely broken or gone. So if he had, you remember every shield has like a damage value. So if the shields had 5 HP on them and he went to refresh them, they wouldn't refresh. So it would stay in the lower value. Now, our friend Black Cloud and several other content creators who play Japan have tested that in Japan, and it has been fixed in Japan. So in the Japanese version of the game, when 9 presses the refresh button, his shields refresh to the higher ability, to the higher HP. But we don't know if that's going to be the case in global yet. So hopefully we'll figure that out and we'll be able to share that. If anybody is pulling for 9 already and testing that out, you can let us know how that goes. So, but yeah, so right now I certainly can't confirm that. So if anybody else, and if not, we'll talk about it, I'm sure. We're also going to have a chaos fight for this, but we don't know what it is yet. So we'll talk about it next week and potential TCC challenge as well. So hey, Gold Orb. Yeah. Well, let's briefly, since we have Neclord here and we haven't had him on for a while, Neclord, put you on the spot a bit. We kind of have on our outline every week a little talk about Abyss Perfectum because it is permanent content and it's difficult content, perhaps the most difficult content we've had. So, what's been your take on Abyss Perfectum? Have you done Abyss Perfectum or skipped it, or how many nodes did you be able to bring Cyan on?
For the most part, I actually quite enjoy Abyss as a concept. It takes a while to traverse through it. The quests are usually quite long, so I'm pretty lazy. It usually takes me a good like week or two to get through it all. I'm pretty much at the end of it now. But I'm hoping to use Cyan in the hardest quest because I think it requires a blue crystal, if I'm not mistaken. So I can conveniently slot him in there. I think my biggest hurdle for that's probably going to be the dagger requirement. I don't really have any up-to-date dagger units, unfortunately. But no, I've very much enjoyed them. I've used Cyan plenty in some of the like side ones. In particular, the Malboro stages are pretty good for that because he's got guaranteed hit. Even if he gets applied with blind, it doesn't matter. And of course he dispels them, so there's that as well. If his HP's high enough.
He's basically a tank. I mean, if you can...
I mean, he has self-heal, right? So he's the same as Keiss.
Pretty much.
Basically.
Yeah, dagger users is tough. We got Ferris and Zidane and Keiss, Lilizette. But yeah, there's Pinello is a dagger user, right? So, yeah, there's a handful of them, and they're good. But yeah, I got Barrett's EX.
Edge.
So, I always forget Edge is a dagger user. Yeah, so I'll keep.
My most up-to-date dagger user is Ignis. I have not 3-3'd any dagger user since Ignis.
Yeah, Iggy does work well. Yeah. So, hey, Keiss, we got Neclord here. We didn't have a lot of content today to talk about, but we're having a good time. So let's see if there's any podcast questions.
Well, I was going to mention that for Abyss Perfectum, I am actually caught up too. Since last week when we talked, I have finished Stratum 3, though I let Noctis LD carry me to victory on that final fight because, oh my gosh, that was hard. Or that would have been hard without Noctis. I don't remember. I think I used Zidane, Noctis, and Arciela, I think, as my team for that final stage, that final chaos fight. I was running on fumes at the end. But yeah, it was tough, is what I want to say. I can see why a lot of people had trouble with it before they had Noctis LD and rework on hand. It was a long fight.
I'd also like to make an update. I did pull on the banner. I got 9's kit and 30k. So pretty good. I'm not going to complain. I'm excited to figure out, is he more tank or is he more fighter by the next week?
So Arrow will give us a report next week on how great 9 is, whether he is a Dragoon, a Paladin, a bad boy. I don't know how you find that out in game. Handsome. He's a handsome devil. But yeah, great. All right.
Now, a reminder, everyone, you have a little under 2 weeks left to finish the time-limited missions for Abyss Perfectum if you're still trying to pick your way through them, and you want those EX tokens.
Lens Hunter, did that trigger you? I don't want to cause any problems. If someone's gonna get triggered by what I say.
Okay. Lens Hunter says they're now uncomfortable.
Good. That's what we try to do. Every week we try to make you uncomfortable.
We usually say that for the post show.
I blame this being a slow week, but it is what it is.
Next week we'll have a story chapter, and will be I guess it's only one new LD PT character to talk about, but we'll have stuff to talk about.
We don't quite have the dates, right, for whether how they're releasing those two, because the Arc 2 Chapter 11 Part 1 Arden banner is going to be split up between two banners, which the other one will have Renoa's LD, and I believe they'll be separated 6 days or a few days
3
apart.
days apart.
Yeah, 3 days apart. So, so on the 24th and 27th, maybe.
That's what the prediction is, but we don't
know for sure. Yeah. So.
As Squex like to say in their slides, content is subject to change.
I'm not even sure why I'm still pulling on this banner.
Why are you still pulling?
I don't know. So let's get to. Who else is on this banner? 9 Barrett.
9 Fujin.
I got
Barrett.
9's EX. And I got a gold orb, so let's see what that is.
Okay, I'll start asking questions.
I already had that one.
Oh,
Okay.
next, before we go, the best character is coming next week. My gal pal Maria hopefully will be here. I'm so hyped. Okay, Dan, go ahead and ask questions, Grease.
Okay. I've been sitting on this one, but let's just go with a silly question. At Pocket Jokers asks, why is Final Fantasy full of good and bad dads, but very few mothers? If Sephiroth had a real mother, instead of a weird alien thing or whatever Genova was for an adopted mom, things could have gone differently. So, I'll let Arrow answer first.
Wow, where are the moms in Final Fantasy? I mean, we know Bart's had a mom, but she passed away. He seems pretty well adjusted overall as an adult, though, so good on him. Wow, that's like one of the only moms I can like think of, like offhand, that we know of, that we even really see in a Final Fantasy game that I can
Cloud
think
had
of.
a mom.
Hold on, who?
Cloud had a mom.
Yeah,
Cloud
but
has
we
a
didn't
mom?
really see her much, did
Look,
we?
we're forgetting someone here, aren't we? Forgetting Terra.
Oh,
Terra?
Terra, yes, yeah, Terra would be. I would consider a
Adopted,
foster
but-
mom. Sure, I'd count that.
Well, she had a mom too, but yeah.
I don't
Everybody
count
had a
Theodore.
mom. Yeah,
Lulu
Rosa.
is a mom in a sequel.
Oh no,
She becomes a mom in a sequel.
no, bad, Amen, bad. No, Lulu. That is fan fiction. That part of 10-2, even if you like 10-2, that part of 10-2 is garbage. That is not right. Lulu and Waka are not a couple. They did not have a baby. That is abhorrent. We shall never speak of it again. Yes.
Mino's just wrong in chat, by the way.
Squall had a mom.
Squall's mom died in childbirth.
Squall had a mom, and then he was adopted. Edea, she is a great mom. I mean, she became an evil sorcerer and tried to destroy the world. But besides
I don't
that,
think he was actually
a good mom.
adopted. That was an orphanage.
Well, yeah, she was like the orphanage mom. Yeah, I mean, that's not like, I mean, no, she adopted all of them because they all became seeds, right? Like they were all her
technically.
children.
Zell was adopted.
They were all. Oh, I guess they did adopt him out. Well,
Yeah.
You know, you can only afford so many hot dogs, so that makes sense. There's not
Aerith
a lot
had a mom and an
not a
adopted
lot of-
mom.
Aerith, we do see Aerith's mom, right? We do see Aerith's.
Rydia's mom dies at the beginning of the game.
Tidus had a mom. She was not.
Tidus's mom is dead for the whole game.
She is not a.
She's
great
dead
mom.
for most of the cutscenes that Tidus flashes back to.
I would count it though because we do actually see this mom in that. Well, was his mom a good mom? I don't really honestly remember.
Yes. No, Tidus's mom is awful, but at Pocket Jokers reminds us of the best mom, Hope's mom, Nora. Yes.
Again,
thank
she
you.
dies
Yes.
and incites the
Counts.
incident for why Hope hates snow.
Which is great. It's my favorite part of the story. Yeah, there's not a. I mean, it's like Disney movies, right? There's, parents in Disney movies don't last very long. And parents in Final Fantasy or fantasy in general, it's hard to have your call to adventure, apparently, with your parents still alive, because then you depend on your parents. But, yeah. There's a lot of good grandfathers, a couple good dads. But in terms of, like, active mothers in Final Fantasy, I mean, Genova and, of course, Mother from Type 0. It was like I was gonna say something about X-Death, some tree. Yeah, Garnet's mom, her adopted mom, or was that her birth mom? No, that she was her adopted mom, the queen, right? Yeah, she was a son. Yeah, sorry, spoilers. Is there another question?
Yeah, well, let's move on to another question.
How many tickets was I at? I'm done.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, so I apologize. Jrater or JRater123 asks, what is one character from any game that you would love to see in DFFO, and what would you want their ideal kit to be? I think we're going to cut the second half of that out. We'll just say, what character do you want to see in DFFO? I'm still waiting for Red 13. Still waiting.
I feel like I could probably answer the first and second half of this. I really want Dr. Sid in this game. ASAP
Sid Reigns,
for
Dr. Sid Reigns.
No. Dr. Sid in 12.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking of Sid from 13.
Yeah, Sid
And,
Reigns
like,
is 13.
I've already
man,
got the
I
kit
really
mapped
want
out.
Sid from 13 though, because he was really cool.
No, because think about it, right? Dr. Sid, his boss fights have a few like cinematic attacks.
Yep.
One involving a minigun, some like laser beam thing. They're pretty flashy and they're pretty cool actually. And he has the like double rifle as his like main weapon, so he would be a gun type. So in terms of like animation, it's all there. They just need to just throw him in, and it would be interesting for the story
And he
because
has
of the direction Vane's taken in this latest chapter
he has
and that stuff.
He's got like little robots, right? Like probes or something that keep him alive or
Yes.
heal him, right? Yeah. So yeah, that'd be fun.
I can't ban Mino because he's a mod too.
I mean, if they wanted to go full on with it as well, he summons one of the espers in the game in one of his fights. So I mean, that could be like an LD or something. I don't know.
What Mino? What question? Did you want me to look into the Did you want me to look into the archives to find? But yeah, of course, I love Edea, the sorceress Edea, and I'm not expecting to get her because she was an alternate costume for Ultimecia. But what about Rufus? Rufus Shinra. I think he's you get his dog and his shotgun. That's a fun character. So yeah. Arrow, do you have any? He'd be like Shadow. He'd be a tank. he'd be a dark enchanter like Leon. You'd like him. He's a hero.
Evasion VV.
Yeah, he's pretty. Oh, we haven't even
Shadow
talked about
Vivi. We need Shadow
Shadow
Vivi.
Vivi.
We don't have him yet.
That's what I want. Black Waltz 1, 2, and 3. And I want it's one character. Black Waltz 1 is the 15, Black Waltz 2 is the 35, Black Waltz 3 is the EX, and every time one of them dies, then it gets to the next one. So that's what we want. Arrow, do you have any characters you want?
I there's a couple. I guess I always want to say Minwoo from FF2. I am still waiting. He seems very likely, but eventually. So my unlikely, but I still wish would come is Benjamin from Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. That's my true answer. I'm going to go with that one because that guy made it into Theater Rhythm 2. I demand him to get into this game. Like, he needs representation finally at last in this game. He never makes it into any of these crossover Final Fantasy gacha games. Defo has picked some very strange characters to represent. I think it's time we bring in the Mystic Quest representation.
Just on a serious note, before we go to the next question, when are we going to get some Type 0 characters? I feel like the game's been out long enough that maybe we could get, 1 or 2 Type 0 characters. So
I know it's only been 20 minutes since the last one.
It's only been 24 minutes. 24 minutes.
Sure, I think we need an entire act dedicated to Type 0 in the universe.
We need a couple more.
Ready for another question?
Yeah, why not?
Whitegraph asks, what are the top 3 LD weapons you are looking forward to by the end of 2020?
Ooh.
I'll go first. The top 3 I'm looking forward to, and these are for characters that are already existing in the game, so I'm not including new characters here. Renoa LD, Lightning LD, and Kuja LD. Major reason is because these are characters I've enjoyed using in the past, and I'm looking forward to them getting a new lease on life when they get their LD weapons.
Yeah, I think Renoa, Kuja, and Beatrix. Those are 3 of my favorite characters, so looking forward to each of those. Yeah. Neclord, do you have any upcoming ones that you're looking forward to?
I intend to pity Arden the moment he comes out,
yeah,
so that'll do for sure. I'm trying to gaze into the crystal ball of the immediate future. Can't quite remember what's coming out.
I can link
shortly.
the Tonberry Troop planner to help you remember.
Hold on, I think I actually have. Oh no, I have one up here. Very nice. So there is. Oh yeah, Edward. I was looking forward to that as well. The old spoony bard, and of course Strago. that banner with Strago and Realm is going to be very nice for me because I don't actually have Realm X yet. So I'm looking forward to getting that in the LD with Strago.
Yeah, we might have to have you back on one of those weeks because I think I'm going to skip most of that cycle. So
Mino might want on for one of those weeks too.
Yeah, he probably
see.
Strago especially.
I'll schedule the time zone sacrifice for it.
Yeah.
Arrow?
Furion, obviously, but I mean, I'm going to go all the way with that one, so I don't know if I should.
Fury, I think we're trying to stay
Furion
within
is
the...
not the end of the year, Arrow.
Yeah.
He's not?
He's going to be
you mean
January.
In January, yeah.
Oh, snap. Snap. I was going to say Guy, too, but I guess that's too late. Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go with Kieran as one of mine then. I'm pretty sure we'll have him right before the end of the year.
Yep.
We should have Kieran.
Beatrix for number 2. I would love to have that one. And one more. Oh, gosh, I'm trying to remember everybody that comes out. I think a lot of mine that I really would pity for are going to come a little later. Will we get Rude by the end of this year? Because
we should get Rude.
Yes.
My husband has demanded I pull for him because he looks like Lo Wang from Shadow Warrior. So I have to pull him, even though I know he is a villain. But my husband, when he
if you're pulling on Karen's Lost Chapter, there's a chance you could get Sephiroth's burst weapon. So
oh no, I hope not. I have terrible luck so far pulling for burst. I only have one, and I pulled off a ticket. I have not gym pulled a single burst yet. So I have come to the conclusion I better get used to doing challenge quests.
I only have one burst too, so you're not alone.
Me too. Oh.
Okay.
Rude is a
one
hero.
One more question?
Sure, one more question, then we can move to the post-show.
Fialu asks, so Noctis was the first. Which other BTs coming our way really are pity-worthy in the host's opinions? I actually don't think any bursts at the moment are really pity-worthy. There are some that are definitely much better than others. And I'm going to be throwing a lot of gems in the Arden cycle to hope for Arden BT. I don't think I'm going to be pitying it if I get really unlucky. But I'm going to try for it. Let's just put it that way. And that's going to be the first burst I'm going to make a genuine effort for. I will also probably be making a genuine effort for Kuja and Lightning Burst. Kuja Burst just because I like Kuja a lot. Lightning Burst because I think she genuinely is really good with it. So probably Lightning would be the next burst I think is like genuinely worth going for.
I want. Go ahead. Go ahead, Neclord, please.
Personally, I really like tanks, so I'm gonna. Another reason to pity Arden, you know.
Yeah, he is an excellent tank. He is an excellent tank. He tanks damage like nobody else.
Man, it's such low hanging fruit, but I gotta grab it.
I want all the burst weapons. Is that too much to ask? Can I not have all of the burst weapons?
How many burst weapons do you have?
I have all of the burst weapons.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate I will get Kefkas, so I probably will be spending tickets throughout that cycle, but I'm not going to use any gems on that cycle. But I'm using gems on Warrior of Light twice. I'm using gems on Arden twice. I'm using gems on Kuja twice. I'm using gems on Sephiroth and Cloud. I may just use tickets on Lightning, so Lightning may be one that I miss out on. So, but yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd like Arden's burst. I'd like Kuja's burst specifically. I'd like Cloud and Sephiroth, but I'll live without them. And the one coming up that I will potentially pity if I have to would be Paladin Cecil. He is again one of my favorite characters, and a lot of those characters are favorites, but in terms of really high on my list, Paladin Cecil. So he will be a potential I won't pass up, or I'll use tokens. At that point, I'll have tokens. All right, well, I think that's it for tonight's show. A little bit shorter, but we'll get into the post show here in a little bit and have some fun. Not like this show, which has not been fun at all. That was a weird thing to say, right? So looking ahead, we have Act 2, Finale, Part 1, The Chosen King's Future. Spoilers, Arden's the villain. And we'll be able to pull for him. With a potential fall campaign, we don't quite know what that will look like because we have not had the next Squex community stream, which will be on the 28th. So that's all we know. We know we are going to get Arden before that or not. No Escape is asking buy monthly skins or Mog Pass. So Mog Pass is priority. So buy the Mog Pass first if you're going to spend money on the game. And then if you want to spend more money on the game, get costumes. There you go. That's my advice. And I buy the fancy Mog Pass. But even if you just buy the simple Mog Pass, you're cherry. All right. Hey, so thanks for listening. This has been episode 119 of the Crystal Chronicles, your City of Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast. I am Mark. I'm joined by Arrow. Arrow, how can we get a hold of you or check out your content?
I can be found on the TCC server Discord. And of course, you can find me on YouTube as Lily, which is Leilee.
Keiss doesn't make content, but sometimes he streams on this channel, so you can check that out when he does. And Neclord, is there any way anything you want to share or anything that you're doing? I know you're often making memes and sharing them on Reddit. I always appreciate those.
So I've got a new lease of life now. I'm just posting Cyan runs with some comfy commentary. If you enjoy this voice, then you'll hear more of it with some Cyan content. So just search Neclord on YouTube. It'll probably be the first thing that comes up.
So Neclord on YouTube, and you can listen to more of our Welsh English friend. And we thank you, Neclord, for being with us. It is always a pleasure. And we do love listening to your voice. So, tccpodcast.com for all of our links and all of our things. Do follow us. Consider giving us a sub on Twitch. Follow, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications on YouTube. We are on Twitter and on Facebook as well, and join our Discord. But do check out our friends at TomberryTroop.com, DecidiaInfo.com, Macnol's friend, Macnol's website. And thank you to all of my hosts. Thank you to the Tomberry Troop, our mod team, Inkwelder, J.A, Jin Lee, Macnol, Quetz, and Strafe. Thank you to Dreamy for the intro videos, Jin Lee for the background emotes, Hate13 for the intro narration, and Ryan is the Bomb 203. That will be on YouTube for the intro music. Thanks to Black Cloud, Black Nero on YouTube, Shara on main chord, Ricky Shu, and our good founder, Pierre, who is still enjoying his new car. So this has been episode 119 of the Crystal Chronicles. Until next week, good luck on all your 9 pulls or all your skips or all your Arden pulls, and we'll talk more about it next week. Until then, friends, goodbye.